Not a thing, but some people can do it, and he's really good at it. Ty, ostensibly this is a Notre Dame edition of the podcast, and you are quite familiar with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, people are saying, and I want to start off here. Now that you've had, I mean, it's pretty amazing how quiet it's been over the last month, because we thought it might just be like a avalanche of changes where it was like, oh, they moved here, so now this is going to happen, now this is going to happen, now this is going to happen, and it's kind of cooled off, and a lot of folks are puffing their chests. We get the Pac-12 puffing their chest a little bit, you get the Big 12 puffing their chest a little bit. The ACC is kind of, it seems like most of the teams there have been like, all right, well, 2036, we'll start looking at that, because we don't want to deal with the grant of rights stuff, and that this might just be the case for the next 10 plus years. Everything still, it seemed like at the time when folks were talking about it, and I had Andy Staples a few weeks back, and we were talking about this too, and you being more plugged in and just what you know about Notre Dame, does your gut tell you they join a conference? Is that something that happens here?
In the short term, no. Longer term, I think it's inevitable.
Okay.
I think they have to. There are all sorts of reports out there, right, around first and foremost how much money a USC or a UCLA or really anyone in the Big Ten stands to make from the new version of that conference once everybody's in. There were reports that Notre Dame was trying to get $75 million out of somebody to remain independent, but have a TV deal, right, that they could still use to get in front of a national audience. I believe everybody's got a price, and I understand there's an argument to be made that super conferences are potentially going to ruin college football. We can have that argument for another day, but I do think it's going to come to the point where Notre Dame's hand will be forced, that they will have no choice but to join the Big Ten. And that's either by virtue of the money getting so lucrative that they can't say no, or by virtue of some other domino falling, right? The ACC is interesting to me with Florida State and with Clemson and other schools that could, UNC is one that always comes up. These are schools that could potentially be a fit in the SEC. Now, the ACC's kind of got its own grant of rights issue that might not be an imminent departure for any of those schools, but I do think it makes sense that eventually those are other schools that could move over to the SEC and further grow that conference. I've said for a while that I think that would be the domino that would ultimately force Notre Dame's hand, if not for, some other money thing that happens before then. So I think they'll slow play it. I don't think it's going to be a rush for anybody, but I think eventually, one way or another, whether it's somebody else forcing their hand or the money making the decision for them, they're going to have to do it.
Is there any chance they join the ACC full time?
I don't think so.
Okay. Is there anything the ACC could do to entice them to join full time?
Right now, the ACC's media deal is pretty lousy by comparison. And you've got this situation in which both the Big Ten and SEC are going to be the ones that get the biggest bags of money. I don't see Notre Dame being in this position where if they're going to join a conference, they want to take a smaller sum of money. I think they know what they've got. They know they're a national brand, and there's no reason they'd want to undersell themselves if push comes to shove and they decide to change their mind on independence. So at least as of now, unless something drastic changes, I think it's probably the Big Ten or bust.
Which is kind of unfortunate. I don't know if you share this opinion, but it feels like that would actually stabilize a lot of college football. If they were just like, nope, we're not taking more money, we're joining the ACC full time, we're keeping the ACC together, the Pac-12, I mean, ultimately they could just gobble up the San Diego States and whatever, and they could survive. They won't be as big of a conference without USC and UCLA, but still a really good conference if they were able to stabilize with what they have. That would be like, I think, I don't know, I was talking to a buddy about this, where I'm like, that's what every college football fan should be rooting for, is like some kind of Hail Mary situation where Notre Dame's like, we're not joining the Big Ten, we're not increasing that, because then, of course, it spurns more SEC expansion, and they're like, oh, if y'all are going after Notre Dame, then we're doing this, and then the super conferences are here to stay. But if Notre Dame were just to be like, No, we're not doing that. We're actually going to go join the ACC and pump this up. And we really enjoyed our ties there. And Jack Swarbrick's really good friends with Mr. Phillips, and we're going to do him a solid. Like, that would be, I mean, that's my dream scenario.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you, and I have had that same thought. I am not necessarily the biggest proponent of super conferences. I think it could change college football in many ways that aren't palatable to those of us who have been fans of college football for a good long time. Change is inevitable, one way or another. You just have to be ready for that. But like, I don't know, super conferences are the way to make for a better sport. So at least in that sense, the biggest stabilizer really for any conference is Notre Dame. If you can land Notre Dame, and you'll recall when they changed the leadership of the ACC, that was one of the first things that came up. We got to figure out a way to get Notre Dame signed on to this thing long term. I just, it's too unstable at the moment. It's too unstable. Anybody who follows the sport can recognize that the momentum is with both the Big Ten and the SEC, and it would have to be a hell of a package that really benefits Notre Dame for them to even consider joining full-time with the ACC, knowing that there is so much momentum on these other bigger conferences. I just don't see it.
I don't either, but hold out hope. Jack Swarbrick, friend of the pod. Do what's right for college football. Just make the call with Mr. Phillips. Just do it. What is your gut on Marcus Freeman being more successful than Brian Kelly at Notre Dame? What does your gut say on that?
My gut is more successful in the recruiting game.